Morning. I want to welcome you all back from winter break. I hope you had a wonderful Hanukkah, Christmas, and you're all rested, ready to go. And it's good to see you. I just told that I had the privilege of using the headmaster's mic this morning. I don't know what, that explains my promotion over the break. I got, this wonderful bonus. I went to Bali and surfed the whole time, but not really. Be nice, though. Be nice. On New Year's Day, I took a long morning hike with Mrs. Ganung and our wonderful golden retriever, Safi, just a few miles north of here. There's so many beautiful hiking trails in northwest Connecticut. Doesn't have the grandeur of western Montana and Wyoming where I used to live in the 70s, but it certainly has its own beauty nonetheless. I stood on this favorite perch, this 50-foot rock, and looked out upon this expansive valley below. It was covered in this thick layer of morning mist and fog. It was a magical sight. All days are magical if the eyes of the soul are open. Above me was this canopy of brilliant blue sky, illuminated by this surprisingly warm January sun. And below me was a blanket of white fluffy clouds pierced by branches of tall pines and oaks. And I watched this red-tailed hawk light out from a tree branch nearby and just dive into the mist below, this mysterious mist. It took me less than an hour to hike up above the clouds into this clear, beautiful day. And I thought about the symbolism of this experience. So often in our personal and collective lives, we're walking about in the mist, in the fog, so heavy we can barely see the path beneath our feet. In such moments, we need to move mindfully with care and thoughtfulness, lest we stumble or fall and step off a cliff. Being mindful is about being aware of our surroundings, not only about the things that appear in the world outside of us, but the vast universe that's within each of us. This means all of our thoughts, our attitudes, our prejudices or prejudgments, our fears, our suspicions, our anxieties, our insecurities, our doubts. All of these obstacles can very easily lead us off the trail into a dark wood. But if we are mindful of each step that we take in each moment of each day, we will surely find a path that will lead us above the clouds of illusion and confusion to the summit where it is clear and the sunlight is radiant, the sky is cobalt blue, and the possibilities for our lives are unbounded. Yes, of course, you have many different challenges in your lives, and they vary from class to class and year to year. There are many things that you worry about. I know. I was a teen not too long ago. Well, maybe quite a while ago. I'm not sure. And there are many problems in this country and in this world, but the truth is there always have been. But as we begin the new year of 2012 together, let me offer a few thoughts about how I think we might make an immediate impact, beginning here at Taft and then in the global community we share. I believe we can make this world a little more warm and welcoming, a little more kind and loving, a little bit more compassionate, and if we mindfully, intentionally, and deliberately choose to do so. Politicians, people in the world of finance and economics, and most of you would probably say that we are in severe debt and we need to tighten our fiscal belts in order to pull through this recession, right? Yes, I would agree we are in financial debt in this nation, in Europe, and throughout the world. But the more profound debt that we face on this planet is not the scarcity of financial or economic, and I'm even going to say environmental resources. The most profound debt is the scarcity of compassion and loving kindness in our everyday dealings with one another. So I want to talk to you a little bit about compassion as we begin the new year of 2012. How do we live more compassionate lives? Let me help you define compassion. It is not a word you can just look up in the Webster's dictionary. It's not to be understood by the intellect, because it is a way of being. It is a way of living in the everyday world. Let me start by saying what compassion is not. It's not pity. It's not like feeling sorry. You're watching the evening news and you see an earthquake or a tsunami or a terrible war going on, people suffering. You say, oh, I feel so bad. I'll pass the potatoes. That's kind of the way it is. That's not what it is. It's also not an action. It's not an action only, because many actions have different motivations. Some of them are noble and altruistic and selfless. Others are not so. There are ulterior motives. So compassion then is like loving kindness is a condition or a state of mind. It springs from the depths of the heart and the soul. It's the core of our being. Compassion emerges and blossoms when we become our authentic and genuine selves. This is what all true religion, all true spiritual traditions are about. Helping us become our genuine and our authentic selves. Not being plasticky, not being fake, not being phony. You can tell when someone has a mask on and there's no connection. You know when you're in a relationship and you're connecting with someone at the heart level that they're really genuine. Everyone can become that. I would say as a religious person, as the chaplain, as a reverend, that it's when we expressed our Christ nature, our Buddha nature, our divine nature. And I believe with every ounce of my being, like the Quakers, like the Jewish mystics, like the Hindus and others, that every living being, everything in this universe has a divine spark in it, pervades all things. Buddhists say compassion has many faces. Some are fierce, some are wrathful, some are tender, some are wise. The Dalai Lama reminds us time and again what is most essential in this life. He said, love and compassion are necessities. They're not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. We need compassion just as much as we need oxygen to survive. This is what your education is all about. The core, most important thing of education is this: to find out what is most essential and what is most necessary in your lives to be filled with joy, to be filled with happiness, to be fulfilled, to discover your authentic self. Compassion, then, is the capacity to see clearly into the nature of suffering and to recognize that we are not separate from the one who suffers. And this is what I always teach and will always teach to the end of my life, and we have to get this. We have to get this as adults and students. We are not little, independent, self-contained entities walking about on this beautiful planet in this universe with no connection to what happens to others nearby and around this world. Physics and Buddhism, this is where science, philosophy, and religion dovetail nicely. Physics and Buddhists teach us that we live in an interdependent, interconnected universe. There is no such thing as an independent person or being. The conventional wisdom is this: that every woman, every man ought to look out for him or herself. Take care of number one, because we are not, as the core of the Judeo-Christian ethic, we are not our brother and sister's keeper. But this is so far from the truth if we examine it closely. We are all part of one another and of the earth and of the entire cosmos. And this is precisely, you've studied John Donne in your English classes, what the 16th century English priest, poet, satirist meant when he said, "No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent and a part of the main." Or as the wonderful American naturalist John Muir said, "When we try to pick anything up by itself, we find that it is hitched to everything else in the entire universe." Compassion, then, is the capacity to see clearly that we are not separate from the suffering and the struggles of others on this planet. We are part of one another. There is no such thing as independence. Everything is interdependent. When we live as though we have nothing to do with others or anything else that happens in this world, all kinds of trouble and suffering begin to arise. So compassion, then, is aspiring to transform suffering and engage in activities that reduce suffering. Many of you participate in community service work. You go to Dominican. I've gone with some of you to Guatemala and South Africa, soon to be Brazil and India and other places. You go with your parents or religious or nonprofit organizations beyond Taft to serve, or you work in the local soup kitchen in Waterbury, or you volunteer in a variety of outreach programs locally and globally. You do this because, when you do this, you're practicing the art of compassionate living. The key is to integrate what you've learned intellectually and at the heart level into your lives so that you can continue your lifelong journey with compassionate living and loving kindness is not the secondary and not peripheral, but is the primary motivating force in your life. What can you do? You can reach out to the kid sitting alone, at lunch or dinner. You ever see the kid sitting alone? Well, faculty and adults feel uncomfortable and weird, strange when they're sitting alone too. You can restore a friendship you have let lapse. You can find a way to connect with a neighbor in your corridor or somewhere in school or a classmate that you don't know well enough. Compassion also has its enemies. One I mentioned before, pity, that feeling sorry when you're passing the potatoes. But there's also self-righteous indignation or self-righteous moral outrage. And there's also, very importantly, the judging mind. Think about it. Just experience it. Be mindful. When you're sitting in the judgment seat and judging another, compassion and love immediately exit. But perhaps the greatest threat to compassion is fear. And we live in a world that's paralyzed by fear. We're served up a platter of fear every day by political leaders, by the media, military leaders, people in positions of power. I don't have to tell you this. You know that tyrannical governments and people in authoritative positions control the populace and the citizens by instilling them with fear. But compassionate living transcends fear. As the scriptures say, perfect love casts out fear. Or in Buddhism, when you achieve the nirvanic state, it's because you have gone beyond desire and fear. Well, the good news for us is that scientific studies show, and you can look it up yourself and look into these studies, that when we live with compassion, it literally enhances our immune systems. Positive things happen to our minds and our bodies, not to mention the spiritual benefits that accrue. And studies have shown that people that practice compassion and cultivate the art of compassion feel the suffering of others more profoundly, but they return to their baseline more quickly. They're more resilient. That is because they have developed a healthy equanimity and balance in their lives. Buddhists have this saying, to live with a strong back and a soft front. A strong back to meet the challenges, the hardships, the sufferings that are going to come everybody's way in life. But a soft front to live with an open mind and an undefended heart. Not being defensive, being open. And so back to the morning clouds along the trail I was hiking 2 days ago. Imagine that you're lost in the mist in a dark wooded area. How can you find the trail that leads to the summit where it's clear and bright under a sparkling azure sky? I have a helpful clue for you. It's when you extend compassion to others, beginning with your disposition, your demeanor, your words, your kind actions. When you do that, you will ascend the trail to the greatest heights. So let us start really simply here at Taft Community today as we walk out Bingham, and some of you sneak out here as I do. Let us begin 2012 differently by cultivating compassion in our lives, by intentionally developing an attitude and mindset that seeks to be mindful every day. Practice doing this in all of your interactions with your classmates, with students you don't know, perhaps from a different grade level. If you're an upper mid or a senior, make a friendship with someone in the lower mid or the mid class, particularly someone you might think is hurting in some way. And also those with whom you have trouble relating to, or maybe those you've hurt with some words or actions in the past. Try and make reparations. Think about us. Think about the faculty in your classroom and your dorm, and also the staff members at Chef Revron, and the people who clean the floors and do the dishes you see every day that provide 3 wonderful meals for you a day. Don't take this for granted. And those who care for these facilities, building and grounds, that make this a tidy and beautiful place. This is one of the most gorgeous campuses, high school campuses in the world. People come here in the summer program. Somebody said to me a year or two ago, what is this place? This is more beautiful than my college or university. And think about the people in the mailroom who will get your packages in mail. Treat them with kindness. Treat them with respect. Cheerfulness. Don't think anybody's your servants. And there are over 7 billion people on this planet. I always wake up every day. I think I'm no more value and no less value than anyone else on this planet. Think mindfully about what you write on Facebook, Twitter, and email, and all the other things that I don't know about. Begin anew each day when you get out of bed. Get out of bed, you drag yourself to class. You're up at 2 in the morning, video games or whatever you're doing. You should be studying, you know that. Most of you are. But contemplate carefully each throughout the day. What's the compassionate response in every situation, during class, during extracurricular activities, especially when you socialize with one another, and when gossipy type words start to roll off your lips? Does that happen once in a while? Happens to me, happens to adults. It's very destructive. Refrain for a moment. Step back, take a deep breath. Think again before you speak. And ask yourself, is that what I want to talk about? Is that the way I want to treat others? Do I really hear what I'm saying? Is that compassionate or kind? What if they were doing that about me? How would I feel? This is the way we transform our world, one person, one community at a time. So, I want to welcome you all back. I want to wish you a happy, we've had a great start to the year. This is a wonderful group this year. This has been a fantastic year. Let's continue to make this the best TAV class, year ever. God bless. Happy New Year. And Walter Wu will be here on Thursday.